Well, we heard earlier today from Obi about the tragedy of girls being kidnapped by extremists. And now we're going to move to the other side of the coin. Girls, young people being seduced by jihad. And also, more hopefully, the women who are coming together with innovative solutions to do something about that. Dr. Edith Schlaffer believes that this relationship between a mother and her child is an essential weapon in the battle against religious extremism. It is mothers, she says. Can you hear me, everybody, by the way? Yes. Who can detect trouble first and sound the alarm before it's too late. Edith is a social scientist and holds a PhD from the University of Vienna. She's the founder of Sisters Against Violent Extremism, a worldwide network of mothers working at a grassroots level to confront the threat of terrorism. Hillary Clinton has called it one of the most important organizations in the global war on terror. Welcome, Edith.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so happy to speak here in this auditorium filled with women, because I truly believe that safety is in our hands, and security is, there are high stakes around security, but we can make it happen, that we safeguard our families from the families, communities, and the global stage, which is unfortunately now driven by a lot of testosterone, I must say, in the hands of military forces, military strategists, all male, all hardware driven. And when you watch the news and you see these frightened male faces, I don't trust anymore that we're in safe hands. So we do have to create our own safe spaces. And I do strongly believe that we have to start at the home front, where we as women are present.
Walk this back here. You've got into this very interesting and innovative work, which is to galvanize women, especially mothers, to combat jihad. So first of all, how did you get into this work? What led you to feel that this was the best route to face down this hideous, brutal attack on women?
I got very interested in the women in the mothers of the perpetrators. I thought, terrorists don't fall from the skies. They are somewhere produced. There must be homes, there must be families. What did drive them, and what did these families, particularly the mothers, realize, or what did they not realize? And you saw some of the women there.
Well, you've actually interviewed over 1,000 terrorist mothers, right?
Pardon?
You've interviewed over 1,000 terrorist mothers.
I got the inspiration first to give me the idea where some of the mothers of the perpetrators of the terrorists I had the chance to meet and have conversations with. And this was an eye-opening experience. For example, I talked to a few mothers whose sons decided to die as shaheeds, to explode themselves, suicide bombers in Palestine. And after several conversations, they won't say it right away, but after a few conversations in their homes, they said it was the saddest moment of their lives when the villagers brought the bodies of the homes back, what they do, and she was expected to fall to the floor and celebrate and praise Allah. And one of these women, she's in our film, she said, I stopped in the middle of the movement and I thought, did he save anyone? Did he save Palestine? No, it was the saddest moment. And these women, I felt in these conversations, they are so isolated, they are demonized, they need a platform, they come together. This is where change will start from. And then we did a study. I believe that research is quite a sharp weapon. We surveyed over 1,000 women in countries which are targeted by violent extremism, from Pakistan to India to Nigeria, in 6 countries. And what we found was that these women all said, we want to bring change, but we don't trust. We don't trust the state. We only trust each other, close family members, and we need to come together. We need to find solutions together. And this, for me, was the beginning of our movement. And when we talked with the women, and we have a big network now, since we work as an organization over 30 years, as Women Without Borders, I will never forget this meeting in Tajikistan, in the mountains there, where we met with community leaders, not literate women even. And there was one woman who said, we are in such a difficult situation. Our children are being radicalized in front of our eyes. The fathers are out of the country. Imagine Tajikistan, a country without men. 80% of the men are gone. The world doesn't pay attention that the whole country, the border of Afghanistan, is run by women only. And there is Wahhabism.
Because the men have gone to war.
They're outside. They're in Russia. They work, and they find new lives often.
Right.
They are new loves. They move on. They just tweet back, SMS back, "I divorce you," and then they are totally on their own. So these women, I was so moved. So I said, what do you do when you see this radicalization? They came, give me examples. Some of the examples sounded to me like normal turbulences of adolescent lives. So we talked about the differences. We had a psychologist in our team. He explained the various steps of the Erickson developmental model. And I've been teaching at university quite a while. I have never had such an attentive audience like there. They were so inquisitive. They wanted to learn about each and every step.
Well, what are they telling you?
And then they said, and it was my awakening, what we realize now as mothers, we need to go back to school. We need education. And this was the very moment, the birth of the mother schools against extremism.
What are they telling you about why their child fell into jihad? I mean, when you see this week the video of the 14-year-old child being tortured by ISIS, you think, why would such a movement attract young people? What is it about it that is such a Pied Piper to these kids? And why are particular children vulnerable to it? Is there anything that you found as a common denominator in those homes to create the terrorist as opposed to just the disaffected adolescent?
I think it's a very nuanced picture we have, and we have to differ whether we look at Indonesia, for example. In Indonesia, the largest Muslim population worldwide, there we have a lot of recruitment going on in the religious schools, you know, in the madrasas, in the religious boarding schools. I talked to a recruiter recently, and he recruits quite openly. He takes the smartest kids out of the school, and he goes to the parents, asks for their permission to bring them to foreign lands, he says, so they earn money. They go there to help the families who are very, very poor. And sometimes the children don't even know where they go. Sometimes they know and they're very excited about the adventure. So this is trafficking. I think we have to acknowledge this. This is not all about adventure. These children are trafficked. So this is true for a part of the world. When you look at the West, and now we work now with women with a group of women who lost their children to ISIS across Europe. We created now this platform for the mothers whose children followed the lure of Syria. This is quite devastating. The girls often go because they fell under the spell of a recruiter. Sometimes older men who promise them everything, love, attention, all of a sudden, you know, coming very often from a quite gender-policed environment, you know, where the scope of movement is not quite extensive. These women, these young girls are promised they will have their own homes, they will build up, you know, they will even be a building block of the caliphate. They won't even have their own households alone. They will have children, but they will be so instrumental for building up this future paradise. And if they don't manage, they will virtually go to paradise. They buy this. They're in love.
So
and
it's about...
they are also ideologically driven. I think that we must acknowledge it's not only romanticism. These young girls also do have political minds. Very often we see this from the example of the English girls. They're straight A students and they leave. But they are 15, 16, 17, you know, very vulnerable. And these recruiters look at the very vulnerable.
So when you bring these mothers together, what are you teaching them? I mean, you're creating networks, you're going into communities, you are identifying women who you think could be members of the school because their children have been radicalized. What do you do with them in the school, and how does it change anything?
So there are two elements. Bringing the women together, the mothers together, this changes so much in the dynamics. All of a sudden, they can speak about these problems. They are not alone anymore. They don't have to hide. Imagine a social worker who came to Vienna for the first meeting in December for this European network of jihadi moms, as we call them. She didn't even tell her employer that she would come for this reason. She said she might lose her job if she asked for a holiday to join the group. So they are very isolated. This is a deep secret inside them. Very often, even relatives don't know what is going on in their families, so they hide it. The children are in a boarding school, or they're on a holiday or whatever, and they will come, and they believe they might come back. Now they have lost the confidence. So bringing them together is creating a true security network to build up security from bottom up. This is what we need. This is what can create a movement that can create a change of spirit in the homes and in the communities, and maybe even further up.
So what you're doing is you're really breaking them out of their isolation.
Exactly.
Bringing them together,
and
so
then
they can
we bring
form a
them
network.
together for the schools. We create informal spaces, formalized informal spaces, meetings over a period of 2 months where they meet every week. There's a curriculum, and we start out with a lot of confidence building, teaching about the developmental stages, what drives children, what holds them back, where does the anger come from. All these children are so angry. There is a lot of anger, particularly in young Muslim disaffected children who don't have this sense of belonging in our societies. The converts, we have a number of converts, they also look for identity, for belonging, for being somebody, for a kind of acknowledgement. And we talk about these issues with the women, and the sharpest weapon we try to give them is their listening skills. Very often, we as mothers don't want to hear what they already know, where they are, in which direction they are drawn.
Well,
we just say, be a good girl, be a good
I
boy.
also feel that all of us have had kids that they go through phases, and you can't reach them. So adolescents are frequently extremely hostile to any parental, invasion.
Absolutely.
As we know, even at the best of times. So I don't know how you intervene and change an adolescent kid who's getting seduced by jihad. It's as difficult as any parent faces with less harmful invasion. So how do they crack that?
Well, they have to start earlier. When they're already under the spell of a recruiter, it's very late. It's sometimes too late. We have to look at the preventative in the preventative arena, what we can do there. But you can catch the attention of the young if you kind of challenge them, or if you start a conversation which they would never expect from you. For example, in Indonesia, we made inroads into these terrorist networks. There are quite a number of so-called formers with whom we started to interact. I interviewed a bomb planter in the village where we have mother schools running. So I brought back what I learned from him, how he felt, how he was seduced, how he was lured into the whole thing. What was it like, this very moment when he planted this bomb in that church? Why did he do it? They told him, these guys in the group told him, they're all infidels, they have to go. So we talked about this concept of infidelity, of being an infidel. They brought these stories home. I mean, this changed the whole dinner conversation. They didn't expect that from their mother. Even the fathers paid a lot of respect. As a follow-up, some of the men came and said, can't our boys take part in the mother schools? That's very interesting.
So it's about exposing them to the myths.
I think so.
Well,
and I think we have to break the spell, and we have to go right into the belly of the beast.
And I think that what we feel when we see that is you have to rethink about these kids who are going as simply criminals, because what we're hearing about all the time is like catch them, obviously, put them away, kill them, etc. But clearly this is a lost girl. What is going to happen to this girl who's disappeared, and what will happen if she comes home?
And you can also learn from these mothers a lot about the process of radicalization, which you will never learn from any security agent. They never come that close. So from Saida we learned that her daughter was recruited, again, by by a man in the community while her mother was sick. He came to the hospital where the women were sitting by the sick mother. He looked at the girl and he thought, I want to have her. He took 12 children from the same community, from the Somalian community in Sweden, outside of Stockholm. I mean, this was traumatizing for the community. They all lost. But the girls usually are in touch with the mothers. They tweet, they send text messages every week. So you can see the process of excitement, how they get used to this new life, how they are drawn into it, and then after a certain period of time, and this obviously goes parallel with the abuse they encounter there, the domestic abuse, the violence they see, they can't take anymore, the process of disillusionment. We can learn about this. I think this is true security intelligence work we can draw from these mothers. And there's this one side, this incredible grief, where we need to be by them. We need to stand by them and support them. They need support networks. And the best is that they help each other, like-minded mothers. At the same time, this is security evidence, which is so important at this time, where we're all kind of questioning, where, how, why is happening what. There are other mothers now in various groups we're establishing across Europe. One mother said, I visited her last week in Belgium, in her house. She said, I don't have the strength to be angry anymore. We mobilize the world now to stand up with us together against ISIS. We can do that. We use the same tools as they do. We listen now to our kids with so much empathy, interest, as they do. The recruiters take all the time of the world. When you watch the conversations online they have, it's incredible, They show them a lot of understanding.
It's so interesting to me, this question of using women and these informal networks, because what you're really saying is, the hard power is just not working, obviously, in getting rid of terrorism. And we've heard something about that really from Obi too, which is that these informal networks of community and linkage are far more powerful in de-radicalization, because they break down the isolation, which is one of the great tools of recruitment.
I think these informal networks can spread. This can spread across the West and beyond. And we saw that now in our mother schools, which are running over 2 years now in 6 countries, Pakistan and Kashmir and Indonesia. In Indonesia, I went for the graduation ceremony of the first batch of 100 graduates, mothers, and it was incredible. They organized a 1,400 women's march across the villages. All the villages joined in, school children got a day off, the policemen cheered. It was so powerful. They were so proud of their women.
If these kids come home, what faces them? I mean, clearly jihad filled a gap in the soul, in a sense, for these kids. If they come home, is there any way that they can be integrated back into society, or is it only law enforcement that awaits them? Because mothers are not going to persuade their kids to come back if they're going to wind up in prison. I mean, Edith brought to us last year an extraordinarily strong and moving woman from Britain, a woman in Leeds, Vicky Ibrahim, who lost her son to jihad, and she saw how Andy, her beloved son, turned into Issa, this guy who became a radical Islamist, and finally was arrested for trying to blow up a supermarket, and now he's serving a maximum sentence in a prison in Leeds. This is a terrible fate, and in some ways you would expect a mother like Saida, if she finds her daughter, is she just going to wind up in a maximum security prison, or can her daughter be integrated back into society in a way that is politically tolerable? I mean, what is the solution needed for that?
I think we must make sure that the children don't come back as explosives. And if we don't welcome them back home, then they will do so potentially. This is a real threat and everyone is afraid of it. But we can develop, we can safeguard this arena as well. There is a wonderful model in Aarhus in Denmark where law enforcement works hand in hand with family networks, and I think they had 19 people leaving 2 years ago, and just one youngster left this year so far for ISIS. So obviously there we can create structures which are preventative, but also upon the return, we have to find new ways. Of course, if they have committed atrocities, there's no way, you know, the criminal justice will take its course. But the example of Vicky Ibrahim shows that by involving, again, mothers, she accompanied her son who came back, who was actually prevented to explode a shopping mall in England. She went there and she accompanied this process of bringing him back from this extremist mindset. This is very powerful. So I do think we need to find ways of rehabilitation and integration which are certainly beyond the hardcore punitive measures. And we have the means to do that. The social services are there. In some countries in Europe, we're establishing hotlines now, so where parents can call if they feel lost or if they have some suspicions. They can approach social services. This is the way forward, you know. I think
So what is the goal for you in your anti-extremism program now? I mean, you have the mother school. Is there any way you can involve more fathers in this network?
This is our next step. It's so interesting. Many of the mothers could only participate on condition that it went well, it didn't disturb the family routine, or, you know, they got the conditional permission from their husbands, or the younger women from their fathers as well. And now more and more fathers come and are very interested. And we had a very moving experience recently, also in the jungles of Java, where, no, it was in Kashmir actually, in Kashmir, in a very isolated village, where a young boy came, I think 22, and he said, I'm here because you should know me. I forced my mother to join the mother school. I saw how the dynamics in the other families changed. I wanted to benefit from that. And he knew we have a curriculum, he knew he could kind of recite parts of the curriculum by heart. He had read it so often. That is quite moving, and this shows the power of this belonging, you know, of this emotional bond. So women are not only the first line of defense, they're also the first school in their children's lives. So we have to use this tool, we have to use it as a security tool. And then I think we will really create much, much safer spaces all around us. And we are also concerned now with the progress of ISIS. And every evening we watch it with a lot of heartbreak and disorientation. But I do think the solutions are not up there, the solutions are with us. The solutions are with us. And I think all of you can do something. Go to our website, adopt a mother school. It doesn't need much to be a mentor, a sponsor of such a mother school. These women come together in informal sessions, but they need to travel to come together. We do some hosting, tea, like Toyota does for all of us today. So I think we can bring this to the women. It's cost effective, it's creating security networks beyond the imagination of all these people out there who run think tanks and do all kind of high-level war and peace games. I do think that women and mothers are best placed to do so, have to take security into our own hands.
Thank you so much, Edith. It's a powerful message, and I think we've heard from amazing women today who are telling us about the intimacy of connection and how powerful that is in making change. Thank you so much for joining us, coming all the way from Austria, being with us. As always, you're absolutely fascinating what you have to say. And thank all of you so much.